Hello, beautiful soul tribe. I am back. And I know I said from the last episode of this vlog series that I would be back the next day, but sometimes, I see clients pretty much every day and for a big part of my day. So I have to always gauge my energy, but I'm back. I'm back. And what I want to do this time is because I know that I am in front of a global community. Welcome, welcome, globe, welcome, planet. I want to say hello in different languages. So here goes. Hello, hola, ça va, or salut, ni hao, konnichiwa, merhaba. That's as far as I've gotten. So listen, can you drop in the comments below a way for me to say hello in your language? I would love that because we are a global community and I feel like we're just part of planet Earth and the planet Earth that we are out here to heal, right? Heal yourself, heal the planet. So let's jump back in to the vlog series, The Narcissist Declassified, because knowing the game changes the game. If you missed the first episode, go check it out. It sets the foundation for everything we're unpacking here, especially how it's not narcissism that's trending. It's the exposure to it that's trending. The first episode was about understanding the why behind the series, why this conversation matters right now in 2025. And by the way, this is timeless, whether it's right now, but it's burgeoning right now as a conversation, and why it's not just another trend. It's a global reckoning of emotional and energetic illiteracy and pervasiveness. As we continue, remember, this whole series is part of our mission to change humanity's algorithm to making healing the trend, not destruction. We've got a big November ahead. My book with Grace Being, my beautiful co-author Grace Being, who lives in Spain, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, Rebuild from Relationship Trauma, and Find Your Light Again, officially launches in November, but it's ready for pre-order on Amazon. So the link is below. Go ahead and get it so that we can have juicy discussions. And we have created a YouTube channel specifically to talk about the book, the topics in the book, where Grace and I will be sort of riffing, jamming together, having these powerful discussions. Grace will be talking as a relationship survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I will be adding my psycho-spiritual lens, not only in the book, but in our conversation. And so anyone you might know, or if you are healing from this type of relationship, this type of culture, this type of government, this type of family, join us in the conversation, even if you're just learning, even if you're just listening. All right, my loves, let's dive right in. Let's start with the psychological lens and what it tells us, especially what the research tells us. Clinically speaking, narcissism is on a spectrum from everyday narcissistic traits like being selfish most of the time, feeling like you're superior to others, or wanting to always win is a pretty intense narcissistic trait. No matter what, you're the one who always wants to win. My way or the highway type behaviors, or at any cost. Sometimes we try and keep people in relationships where we know they're unhappy at any cost. These are all narcissistic traits. To full on Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD. According to the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that psychologists, counselors, social workers, anyone who's working in the field of psychology or psychotherapy, we use it as our Bible, basically, our clinical manual. Narcissistic personality disorder is described as a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior. It's coupled with a constant need for admiration and a lack of empathy. It tends to begin in early adulthood. I would even say maybe a little earlier, even young teens. we can start tracking some of this. And it presents across many contexts. And this is what's really important. The word pervasive is central to the description of an MPD. Because what separates someone from a personality structure or having narcissistic traits to someone who actually has a personality disorder is that it's pervasive across many contexts. This is happening at work, in their family, with lovers, with friends, on the bus. It's happening everywhere. It's not an occasional bad mood or arrogance. It's a chronic, rigid way of functioning that seeps into every domain of the person's life. And so for those of you who aren't quite clear, like whether this is just a trendy topic or if it's an actual clinical issue, this is the way to distinguish it. If there's somebody you're thinking of right now that you know, and you see that this impacts them in all of the parts of their life, then they might have narcissistic personality disorder. This is over time, across contexts. Again, I repeat, it's pervasive. It's not that these individuals can't love, it's that their whole entire personality is built on protecting them from the vulnerability that true love requires. It's a terror. It's not a fear. It's a terror of being vulnerable, especially around love. And this is usually because there was a very profound neglect, abuse, or abandonment or shaming wound very early on that got completely frozen, rigid, and grew over time. It became sort of unmovable. And so the rest of the personality that was built around that wound became narcissistic personality disorder. So it's very likely that this child wanted to love, was sensitive, probably very sensitive, felt very vulnerable, and they experienced neglect, abuse, shame, ridicule, where love became so painful that the psyche could not bear it. So here's something important. Listen, all of us have a little bit of narcissism in us. It's really funny because when you're studying to be a psychologist, a psychotherapist, or even in social work, every time we're learning about a personality disorder or about a clinical issue, clinical disorder, we all say, oh my gosh, I have that, I have that, I have that. And we all do. We all have a little bit of something or a little bit of many things. The idea here is, how is it impacting most areas of my life? How is it pervasive? We all have moments of ego and vanity or feeling superior or feeling inferior or wanting to dominate or wanting to win at all costs. We have that. It's pretty much human. It's when these traits become the only operating system, when empathy and accountability are completely offline. And how that shows up is really struggling to say, I'm sorry, really struggling to say, hey, that was my fault, really struggling to make amends when they've hurt other people, even noticing it. Sometimes they'll notice it, but they won't care because you've got to win at all costs. That's part of the mind game. That's part of the superior inferior paradigm. I've got to stay on top no matter what. So empathy and accountability, not there. That's when it crosses into a disorder. So before you run around and pathologize everyone around you, let's touch the places inside of ourselves that can have compassion and discernment. I talk a lot about discernment. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Ramani Durvasula. Go find her. She is a genius. She's so well researched on narcissistic personality disorder. She's really helped put this on the map. She covers every single angle, nuance, clinically, colloquially about narcissistic personality disorder. Go find her. She's amazing. And she's not to be messed with. You'll see. She brings both precision and compassion to this topic. She's very portable and practical. which is my jam, as you know. Her YouTube channel is linked below as well. So she covers this, but in clinical psychology, we also cover it. And here are the types. The grandiose narcissist, usually dominating, entitled, talking about himself, all the stuff that he does. This is the classic narcissist. When most people think of that narcissist, they're very self-aggrandizing in a way that feels not confident, but aggressive. It doesn't feel comfortable to be around. They're very attention-seeking. And you get a little vibe, especially for empaths, if you have your clairs lit up, that it's fake, that it's not based on anything real. There's the vulnerable or covert narcissist. This is a really interesting type. This narcissist is passive aggressive, always the victim, like hypersensitive. Everything's happening to them. And they're also quietly competitive, believe it or not. The way they like to top you is by suffering more. Then there's the malignant narcissist, and Dr. Ramani covers all of this. The malignant narcissist is cruel, is sadistic, wants to hurt. That's the end game. It's power obsessed and has a lot of overlap with antisocial traits. These are the sex traffickers. These are people like Hitler. Where being cruel, where being the top dog means that they will go to any means necessary. That includes exploitation of children, exploitation of people they feel are inferior to them, killing people. This is the very, very malignant narcissist. Our history, our human history, is full of the communal narcissists. They're the ones that want to be admired because they're good. They have like a public image. They're nice. They volunteer, right? But that's not what's happening behind the scenes. That's what's really important in all of these, that there's an incoherence. These folks might not be nice at all in their own homes, but they do have a public persona of being very nice, being the lead volunteer at the elementary school. The somatic narcissist. And these are the people that their self-worth is all based on what they look like, on their body, on their sexuality, how they're coming off physically. That's it. There's not much more inside of them, which, by the way, tracks for all narcissism. There's an experience of profound emptiness. There's the cerebral narcissist. These are the folks that get attention by feeling superior in terms of their intellect, what they know, credentials or professional status, their education. I'm thinking of one I worked with in my practice years ago. And everything was based on how much smarter he was than anyone else, including me. At some point, maybe I'll do one of the episodes, might do my experience, just my personal experience with different types of narcissists and how that played out in session for me. I don't work with them anymore at all. I can catch them very early on. And remember, these are patterns, pervasive patterns. Most narcissists change masks depending upon the audience they're with. What's going to get them the most attention, the most inclusion, and what makes them most admirable that day. Now, you might say, well, all of us feel that way. And we do. It's the lengths that they're willing to go and the fact that it's genuine. They are aware that they're putting on a mask for the group they're in. So now I'm going to move into my Claudism list, my Claudism perspective, sort of what I have nuanced over the years. And it's a colloquial slang type of approach. So here goes. And if you have your little notebook, start writing it down, because these are the ways that you might recognize narcissists in your own life, ways that you might not have thought of before. I've garnished this from sitting with clients, having friends, having family members, colleagues, meeting people who are out and about networking. All of this I've garnished from those experiences. And if you're new here to the channel, Claudisms are my psychospiritual insights, emotional way of understanding bigger concepts or clinical concepts It also allows you to mentally reframe something in a way that you can drop in and understand it very quickly. That's what my cloudisms are. And I didn't create that word. One of my clients, or several of my clients, created, oh, that's a cloudism. So here we go. Number one, the quiet, sinister narcissist. This is a little bit of a surprise because we're mostly used to thinking of narcissists as being loud and flamboyant and wanting to be the center of the party. No, this narcissist is like in the shadows and they tend to be predatory. They're tracking who their next source of supply is going to be. They know who to find at that party. They will hide behind masks of being super good looking, maybe innocent. Maybe they're an authority in something. Now, this quiet person also can target children because the pedophile is not only antisocial, they're a narcissist. The silent stalker type is looking for their prey, power, secrecy, and grooming are the chosen tools. This isn't the visible narcissist. It's all about control and silence. Very dangerous because they slip right in. It's very slithery, very slippy. And if you're healed or if your intuitive senses are on, you can feel it. But if they're silent and nice to the parents because they're grooming the child, or nice to that the shy girl in the room. All of this have the same, again, secretly powerful and strategically targeting. Number two, the suffering narcissist. And this is interesting because this might be a parent. And what I mean by the suffering narcissist, this narcissist is always in a crisis and you might not recognize them again. Hard to recognize because it could be a mother who goes from illness to illness to illness, who's always suffering. And one of the ways that I sometimes when I'm talking to clients and I could hear that there's a suffering narcissistic parent in the room is that the show is always about them. So the child might get good grades, the child might have a performance, but even at that performance, the parent will be sick, will have a hard time parking all the time. Why is traffic so bad? Even when it's the child's moment to shine, this is how the suffering narcissist shows up. And maybe you're thinking about someone right now. There's always something. It could be a partner, right? Always something, they got fired again, and it's everyone else's fault. They got sick again. They were betrayed again. The world is against them. They're suffering. Now, listen, for empaths, this is very important because at first you're constantly there helping, saving, fixing, harmonizing for them. But over time, what I want you to notice, especially if you're highly sensitive or just a kind person, that you'll be there and be there and be there. And then you'll realize, wait a minute. This is a pattern. And I always say this is the distinction between saving and helping, right? When you're helping somebody, because we want to help people when they're having a hard moment, when they're having when they did get fired from their job, when they need a little extra cash, when they are sick, you want to help. But usually when you're helping someone, once they get back on their feet, they're back on their feet. They're out there. They're out there doing their life. The suffering narcissist always needs saving. And it's hard to get until you realize this is a pattern. It's always about your show. This is a parent who at graduation will be in pain, will be uncomfortable and saying it very loudly. This is even the person who's just always tired, always tired. And again, evasive. So they collapse and they manipulate by pulling empathy from others. That's strategic. That's the way they become the center of attention. And this is, of course, in the book, The Empath Leader, because this is where the child becomes parentified. They're always saving the parent because the fantasy is that if I save you, then one day you'll actually parent me. and it never usually happens. Then there's the classic narcissist who's abusive and appropriate. Okay, this is where, again, my list is about saying people you might not recognize. So this type of narcissist might be really helpful. They're helping you all the time. They know where to go. Very resourceful. They're the guy person, but there's a price to pay because they're inappropriate. Do you have an uncle? Do you have a helpful friend who's always, even your spouse, saying inappropriate things, embarrassing you? They're critical. And maybe they're love bombing you. What I want you to notice is they might be love bombing you in the moment, but they're super critical of the restaurant, of the server, of traffic. They're yelling in traffic. They're demeaning. They're gossiping. This might be a coworker, a colleague. They thrive on feeling superior. This might be someone you just started dating who, when they tells you the story of people they've dated, I want you to notice this. That person was crazy. They were messed up. It's always the other person. Their romantic or dating history always includes that the other person was crazy. And they'll use that word a lot. This person is uncomfortably inappropriate. And so there's a lot of silence around this person because people don't know how to say something. There's a lot of enabling because confronting this type of narcissist means that they're going to come back hard. They might get drunk. They're sexually inappropriate. They're abusive in public, and on and on and on. I know some of you are already thinking of this person. So some of the things you might be looking for is gaslighting. It was them. That's not true. They're dominant. They like to dominate. And they control through fear, humiliation. For example, it's happened to me at family parties where there might be a family member who's demeaning, criticizing, ridiculing their children. And again, it gets quiet. Because this is a type of narcissist. All narcissists are scary, by the way, but this is the one who will confront you in public, who will humiliate you in public. So it's scary. And again, the whole premise of this vlog series is to notice how much silence there is around. Number 4, what about this one? The good guy narcissist. Now, this one's tricky. Because the good guy, the nice girl narcissist hinges their whole identity at work, with friends, with family as being nice. They are the good boy, the good son, and everyone describes them as the nice guy. They seem polite, they seem charming, they seem service-oriented. The trick is it's all strategy. So it's not like the wounded empath who's fawning or people-pleasing. No, this is image making. In fact, they feel that part of what makes them likable or even popular at work, with friends, over time, is that they're so nice. Now, again, this is how to spot them. You want to track how they treat others. How do they treat the cleaning crew? Do they gossip? A lot. Even if they're just saying, this is just funny. This is just light. Are they big gossipers? Really notice that one. They love to talk about others in a way that seems funny. It seems nice, but actually they're establishing superiority through it. They're demeaning them slightly, or what they do, or how they present, how these other people present. Are they rushed? Are they acting like they're listening to you, but really they're on to their next thought? They're not that interested. Are they nice when they've got someone around them where they have something to gain? But once that person is gone, they sort of ignore you or are not that interested or indifferent. These are the things to notice. It's what I call like the side stuff. Because sometimes all of these narcissists might be giving, this is my experience, they might be love bombing you. They might be in their full chase of you. So you're getting all the delicious, juicy stuff from them. You want to notice what comes out of their mouth, gossip, criticism, demeaning others, yelling, all of that stuff. What comes out of their mouth on the sly when you're not catching them? You want to notice how they treat others from whom they have nothing to gain. You want to notice how they talk about people in their life or in their past. Number 5, the player. This is a really interesting one. The Casanova, the one who gets a lot of play. They're flirtatious, they're sexy, they're magnetic, they score. Now, the tricky thing here is that part of the presentation is that they look super independent. They don't commit, super non-committal. They're just moving around, grooming. Now, in this case, they're not grooming children. They're grooming whoever is their sexual prey. Now, again, what they're actually getting is supply. The thing with the player is that they don't know how to be alone. They're masking their fear and their dependence of being alone. They don't know how to spend a night alone. They need the next person, then the next person, then the next person. Now, they present as non-committal. You've got to chase them, right? They're indifferent. So they're breaking hearts all over the place. But actually, what they're masking is their inability to be independent, to enjoy themselves, to commit, to have consistency. They need constant validation and new supply to feel vibrant and alive. They're not sexy at all, unless they've got what do they call them? Groupies and sexual groupies. They tell you what you want to hear in order to get you. If you want to make them vanish, ask them to be accountable. Ask them to be authentic. They'll run for the woods. Number 6, there's the get away with it narcissist. Again, all of these are my Claudisms from my experience. The get away with it narcissist is the con artist, the ghoster, the fake guru. These are people who lie, cheat, and steal. Lately on Netflix, there's documentaries called the rom-con. These are people who make you fall in love with them, have sex with you, pretend they're committing to you to steal from you, steal from your bank account. And they pride themselves on getting away with it. And this is where it's cruel, where it's sadistic. Again, all of the same traits, a great emptiness. So they have to keep going from person to person to person to get supply. But the ones that are harder to spot are the ones who steal your brand, are the ones who are acting like you and don't tell you that they admire you. They will cheat. This is a person who doesn't want to do the work, always looking for the shortcut. Always. Now, we all want shortcuts. We all want the easy way, but this is a pervasive pattern. They find the way to do the least work. And that's where cheating and stealing comes in. They might steal content. They might steal identities. They might steal brands. If you've ever watched the movie, I think it's like Mr. Ripley, The Amazing Mr. Ripley or something. Matt Damon did it. Amazing, amazing acting. It's based on one of the key traits of the narcissist, which is envy. They envy what and so they will cheat, steal, and lie to get it. These are the people who feel like constant imposter. And it's actually true. They are an imposter. They're masked. They live for the charm, for the deceit, for their ability to beat the system. Constantly, the family system, the dating system, the work system, everything is how do I get the shortcut? How do I dominate? How am I superior? Because I know how to do this. I know how to beat the system. And again, we all want to beat the system. I want to beat the IRS system for sure, the tax system. But when it's pervasive and when we don't care who we're doing it to, remember, lack of empathy and superior-inferior dynamics. These narcissists are parasitic. They're vampiric. They're vampiric in that they want to take what you have. They want your friends, they want your lovers, they want your clothes, they want your language. They will cheat, steal, and lie to get all of that. Now, this could be a best friend. This could be a coworker. This can be someone who hires you. This happens. And we see it happening in groups of women a lot, right? A great example of that is Selena. If you haven't seen the movie Selena, go see it. It's someone who is beautiful, is the full package, becomes famous and popular, and the best friend gets very close and steals, lies, and cheats everything away from her. And I'm not going to do the spoiler alert. If you don't know about Selena, go check it out. But you'll see that is a classic example of this type of narcissist. So what are the common traits across all the types, whether it's clinical or the Claudism types that I'm talking about here? They all share very key markers. They need to feel powerful, and that can show up in things like gossip, superior. They project. It's everybody else. The problem is outside. That person deserves to be stolen from. That system, that job. You hurt me at this job, I'm going to steal everything you've got. I need to get into your pants, I'm going to lie. They're obsessed with public imaging. Remember, they have a sense of deep emptiness, so they mask lots of different masks. Envy is a core trait. Envy. Lots of seduction and being the show. Now, even the quiet one wants to be the show to that child, to that source of supply. Even the parent, the narcissistic parent, needs to be the center of attention. They will make their way through any means possible to gain your trust. And all of it is to maintain supply for how empty they feel inside. So they need to keep filling themselves. So all narcissists, whether they're clinical or Claudisms, orbit around the same core wound, a very intense emptiness. Without their sources of supply, they feel lost, they feel rageful, right? They're like colicky because they're not getting fed. That's, for example, the player. That's why they need to have multiple people around. There's a terror of being alone and having to go inside and face the emptiness. We all fear that, by the way. That's hard work, but we're not willing to hurt, destroy, damage, cheat, steal, lie, demean in order to avoid our emptiness. They're extremely disconnected from the authentic self because it means going back to the time they were wounded. And again, who's to blame them? None of us want to do this trauma work. None of us. It's brutal. It's terrifying. But the difference between a narcissist and a non-narcissist, or the empath, or the highly sensitive, or the human who wants to heal, is that they are willing to go through that hard work. They are willing to find themselves. And that's where healing comes in, by the way, for us to not keep getting wounded. Identify these people in your life. Identify early. Identify them in your family. Identify if you've married to them. Identify them in your communities, in your churches. Identify them. That's why I like to give sort of the sneaky characteristics where we would never think this is a narcissist. And we need to start healing from this by, once we know the game, we can change the game. The more aware, the more conscious we are is part of the healing and the activism. So in the next segment, I'm going to talk about the land of the narcissist and the land of everyone else, specifically the land of the empath, so that take a different approach to how to understand this, because usually we cannot wrap our head around the level of cruelty that we might experience under any one of these narcissists. So listen, engagement is activism. Like, share, subscribe, comment so that we can stay in this conversation. And because we're trying to push this healing, heal yourself, heal the planet algorithm, because we're trying to free ourselves from this system, from this epidemic of narcissism. This was a long vlog today, but it was worth it. And study it. Take your time. And I'll see you in the next episode of the Narcissist Declassified.